Pop Oral History Project. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. I am Pastor Crespo Jr., the research librarian and archivist for the Bronx County Historical Society. This morning, we are joined by Ruben Garcia, also known professionally in the entire hip hop world as MC Rubie Dee. You guys are famous for being on the documentary film Wild Style. That's most memorable image of you. And glad to have you. You're in Houston. We're here by Zoom. So thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
Great. Do you want to do an intro for yourself and let everyone know who MC Rubie Dee is?
Well, my name is MC Rubie Dee. I'm not sure for those of you that know. I was with the L Brothers, Fantastic Five, ran with the Tino, with the movie Wild Style, got a song called Fresh Out Tobacco out there. And other than that, I am the first Latino MC.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, Ruben, what I'm going to do is I still have you connected on my phone. I'm going to disconnect the phone, and hopefully that does nothing here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. Perfect. I just want to make sure that the audio is good for the Zoom and the telephone audio is not messing with it.
Okay.
Great. Great. Awesome. You know, we like to start out all of our interviews by finding out a little bit of your family background and history. Could you tell us where each of your parents come from?
Yeah. My parents, my mom, Tita, her actual name is Alejandrina. We all call her Tita. And my dad, they were both born in Puerto Rico. As myself, I was born in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. Stone River, for those of you that don't know what Rio Piedras means. I came to the United States, or I came to New York when I was 5 years old. I lived on 125th Street and Broadway, and right there off the one train. I used to live on apartment 21H at 3170 Broadway, and across the river you could see Palisades Amusement Park. I don't know if you remember Palisades back in the day.
I don't.
And from there we moved to the Bronx. And
how old were you when you moved?
When I moved to the Bronx, I was, oh my God, 7. I only lived at 3170 Broadway for about a year and a half. I was staying with my aunt. We were staying with my aunt until we got a place of our own. And it wound up being in the Bronx, 869 Stebbins Avenue. That street now is called Reverend James A. Polite.
Got it.
And then I moved, I went back to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
When I was going into the 7th grade, I went back to Puerto Rico. I spent 3 years there, 4 years there. When I came back in 1976, that's when I came back to the Bronx. I came back to a place 818 Home Street. That's where I lived at. Busy Bee Starsky, Chief Rocker Busy Bee, he comes from that building as well.
Okay.
And I was what they call it, the tenant patrol, the tenant association president, whatever you want to call it. And they had a little center, and I played a lot of salsa. Believe it or not, I'm a salsa man.
I hear you.
When there was practice, for example, when we had MC practice, I didn't have a big old radio like everybody else, but I had a radio.
Got it.
I had a radio. And my radio always had salsa on it. I never played, unless I was listening to the Mets on the radio. Okay. Other than that, my radio didn't speak English, and the guys used to always wonder why. How do I go from salsa to hip hop? Well, and I've always said your your rhymes or
Mm.
what you're going to say, you can practice those rhymes, those words off of any beat.
Right.
It can be rock and roll, it can be whatever, heavy metal. You can still say the words, of course, to that beat, but you say the word. And I used to say the words to salsa, some instrumentals, and I would just
Yeah.
walk down the street rocking my and I would actually say it in Spanish or in English.
Got it.
And
Hey, so
I didn't,
before, and I don't mean to interrupt you. So before we start talking about your MC career, and the beginnings of hip hop, can we take you back to your earliest memories when you returned in 1976 to the Bronx, to your neighborhood?
oh,
Tell me about what your neighborhood is like when you walk outside your building that you and Busy Bee Starsky lived in. You know, what are your earliest memories of that neighborhood on
from there,
Seventh Avenue, right?
no, okay, this one was 818 Home Street.
Home
7th
Street. Yeah.
Avenue, I was a kid. I went to elementary school. This is right across from PS 60.
Got it. And how old were you in 76 when you returned to the Bronx?
I was 16.
16. All right. Cool.
I'm old, yeah, I was old.
All right. Well, a
Uh,
good thing about that is that you probably have more memories than the 8-year-old,
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
talk to us, 1976, you're back in the Bronx. What's the neighborhood like? What's it made up of? The community,
Well,
Italian, Irish, Jewish, Black?
I had never been there before. So when I got there, um, Latinos, Puerto Ricans to be exact, and Black Americans, and there was some white people that lived there, one or two. It was predominantly Black and Hispanic because there were Dominicans there too. So
Got it.
can't leave them out.
No, no, no. All growing up in the 70s, we had
Yeah,
Dominicans in my
and
neighborhood.
it was a good time in my life. Um, if you ever speak to Busy Bee Stars, the other one, we called our building the ranch. When we were out and about and it was time to go home, I would tell you, hey, I gotta go, man. Where you go, man? I'm headed back to the ranch. And that's what we call it, the ranch, the home.
Got it.
And we made rhymes off of that and everything from the ranch. But when I got there, um, I have a big family. I have six brothers and one sister. I have other brothers and sisters from my dad, elsewhere, but at home it was six boys and one girl. And anybody that um, grew up with a bunch of boys in their house, we were ultra competitive in everything. Every single thing we were competitive. And there was, whether we were playing softball, which was the primary thing, handball, Skelsy. You remember that game,
Oh,
Skelsy?
yes.
Okay, we played Skelsy and stuff like that. Among other things, I played congas. I'm a conga player. I'm percussionist by trade or whatever you want to call it. And we would come out. Like the good thing about those days were when you said, "I'm going outside," or "Mom, can I go outside?" and they told you yes, you didn't wander off. You just went outside. You just went downstairs and hung out in the lobby, in the back of the building, or in the front. And it was, remember, I never experienced this life until when I was 16. Prior to that, I was a kid. Then I went to Puerto Rico as a teenager, and I came back, and everything was kind of new to me. I would say that new to me.
Right.
The only thing I did was I did um, it wasn't far from my original place at 869 7th, and I walked down that way, and I just saw people, and I would ask for the names of the that I would remember from elementary school. And it just so happened that when I asked somebody, and I said, "Hey, do you guys know Nathan Sweeney?" And the guy looked at me and he said, "Ruben," and it was Nathan himself. Great guy. That was my buddy, and you know, he was the only guy that was ever allowed to come to my house.
Yeah.
Not that was it. All my little Puerto Rican friends or whatever. Nathan Sweeney, black guy. He was the only one that my grandma said, "Sure, come on in." He used to like to come to my house, and you'll laugh at this, and play with my chicken. We had a chicken in the apartment.
Nice.
I remember somebody gave it was a little chicken. It turned out to be a big giant chicken, and it was a thing in elementary school. Because you brought it into school in a little cage, and
Right.
everybody saw it. Then you took it back home, and everybody forgets about it, but the damn chicken grew. And one day I came home from school and we had some pollo frito, some fried chicken, and we ate it. And no matter what we ate, we always we used to call him Pelon, 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 because when he was a little chick, his booty area kind of got
Right.
like he lost all the feathers there. Don't know why, but it was. And we call him Pelon. And you will eat, and I will call him. But he'll come to you, and you give him a little piece of rice or a bean or, whatever, piece of chicken, and he didn't come to me. And I asked, and they told me, "Oh no, we ate them."
Ah.
And I was like, "What?" Said, "Oh man," and I stopped eating that day.
Oh wow. That's fun. Now in your neighborhood, you're 16 years old, you're back, what are what are your oldest memories of the music going on in your neighborhood? And 1976, are you able to see b-boys or breakers in the streets at that time or wherever?
Yes, there were people that break dancing. There were people that were doing break dancing. Um, but back in the day, back in those times, um, they were up rocking. I don't know if you recall that style of dancing, which was break dancing, but above the ground, is what I
Right,
call it.
right. Rock
And then the break
dancing,
dance,
rocking.
right, right. And the break dancing was like when they went down on the floor and did the little helicopter and did all these little, not little, did these great moves.
Is that what you
Um,
saw at 76?
yes. It wasn't. Now, mind you, I'm only speaking from what I saw,
Yeah.
where the neighborhoods that I went to. What happened in other places, I don't know.
Yeah. We only want what you saw and heard.
But like what I told on 63 Park in the Bronx, up on Boston, we would go up on Boston Road. Morris High School, that was right around the corner from my house. Um, Forest Projects, that's what that Joe comes from. Um, we and there was a lot of hustle. Like I learned how to do the hustle. You know,
Talk to me.
um, I was uh, I was older looking. I had my little beard, a little,
Your little chivita.
yeah. I had my little chivo goatee, and I would um, I would go out dancing, and I went and because I looked older, I kind of and act older. You just act the way they act, and nobody will question you. Is the way that was my thinking. And I would go to places. I don't back in those days. Yeah, there was some Latin clubs called El Corso and a place called Barney Google's.
You
And
know
then
where
of
those
course,
were at? Where those were located?
oh man, they were down. They were in Manhattan. I mean, that was so long ago. Um,
All right.
but it was Barney Google. You had Corso. Then of course, you go to Palladium, Studio 54 back then. Jack, yo era un, I was a pretty boy. Like, my shirt was tucked in nicely. I was, I am my dad underwear, my
Uh,
t-shirt, you know, I, my hair had to be immaculate, and I would go dancing and walk around like my shit don't stink, but it's the truth.
right.
Is what I did. Is what I did. And I played a lot of softball back then. And Busy D, I won't say his real name here, but Chief Rocker Busy D, he um he was the only at one time he was the only black player on our team. We played at a little school called 158 on Home Street and Union Avenue. And left field, Reggie Jackson wasn't going to hit it out in left field.
Mhm.
Right field, a 10-year-old with a good swing can hit the wall because the wall was real high. So Busy Bee was lefty. He didn't play the field. We didn't let him play the field. But we had him as a DH, I guess is what you want to call him. And he didn't do anything but hit the wall every at bat. And I'm like, in fact, it got to the point where I was right handed, he's lefty. I started imitating his swing in a way where I could hit the wall. So I would, I adjusted my swing to hit the wall. And we were pretty potent back then, And then, in my building at 18 Home Street, I lived on the seventh floor, apartment 7Y. Um, it was just, the Garcias in our house. And down the hallway, there was a family, uh, black family, the Creightons. And it was five of them, I believe. Clinton, mm, I believe it's five. They played with us, and that was the team.
Two families.
Us. Remember, I had seven brothers. So Fat Joe said it one time in an interview. He said Rubie Dee they had their own softball team. Well, you know,
Your
and it
family's
is,
that big.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now, why didn't you let Busy Bee take the field? He couldn't field.
Um, we never found out.
All right, all right.
We never found out. We had a badass team, and he came out there one day to practice. Like he just one of the guys. He one of the fellas, and he wanted to hit. And no matter what we threw, it was lob ball. He'd stick to the damn wall. And we said, hey, we need this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
We need him. We can put him back anywhere in the lineup, and he was going to hit that damn wall.
Got it.
And that's a hit. That's what we need for get a hit. And if you hit it hard enough and it hits the wall, it'll bounce over the right fielder's head, like almost back towards the infield. And he was a little fast guy too, so he would turn them into doubles.
Right. Now back to your friend again. The
Okay.
only one allowed Sweeney, right?
Nathan Sweeney, yes, sir.
The only one that your grandmother allowed into the apartment.
Yeah.
Now I know he ate. I know you hooked him up with some dinner. So what was the
Oh,
favorite meal that you guys enjoyed?
Well, as far as Puerto Rican cuisine is kind of it's set in stone. You know what I mean? For Christmas, so he used to like to come eat at home, especially around the holidays when we will make arroz con gandules or rice with pigeon peas is what they call 'em. and the pernil, you know, the roast pork, and of course we made morcilla, not morcillas, alcapurrias at home,
Mm.
y pasteles, and he used to love to eat all that shit. You know, he ate all that. He would see me outside. Okay, I wasn't allowed to go outside. I would go to the store. I lived on the fifth floor, probably 5E, 869. Yeah, I can remember that. And the store was like down in the corner. And my grandmother would say, go get this from the store. You got 5 minutes and three of them already passed. Y pasaron tres ya.
Yeah,
And
no
so you
joke.
run down the stairs. There was no elevator. Run out and you run. Mind you, she could just look out the window and watch you. And I'll run to the store. And if I had something to say to anybody, I will see you, and you know, and I would start saying hello to you before I got there. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, yeah, gotta go to the store. And I would just run by, go to the store, and do the same way. And Nathan used to always ask me, "Can you have company?" And I used to always stop for a second, and I never said no, but I never said yes. I always told him, "I gotta ask." And he I asked. And my grandma said, "Yeah." We were in the same class and everything together. So and he would come. Now mind you, this wasn't like, oh, you can just come up anytime or no.
Right.
But in school, you were actually in school, and I would ask my grandma, hey, can Nathan come over? And she would say yes. Anytime I asked, she would say yes. She never said no, and he never spent the night. But he was always that was my buddy. That was my buddy.
Great, great. Wow, that's awesome. And
I
we
had
already know.
I had other friends, but as far as uh, an African American friend back in those days, when I was younger, Nathan Sweeney.
It's your boy.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, so walking out, walking out of your building, were there any visible gangs, still in 76?
Okay. Not in my not where I lived at. Not in that
Right,
neighborhood. Oh my God. Let's take it a 10, 15 block radius. There
right.
was no at that time. They
All right,
probably were. Like I said, I don't know what happened over there. When I lived at 869 7th Avenue, there was gangs all over. You know,
right.
they were, wow, it was a lot. The Spades, Roman King, the Ghetto Brothers, the Savage Skulls. It was just, and I've heard stories about people saying, you remember back in the days, you would see sneakers up on the electrical wires.
Right, right.
And I used to always wonder why. Don't know why, but the first time I saw somebody throwing something up there, it was somebody getting robbed, and they took the old sneakers and threw them up. And I was like, oh, that's why they're there. Other people say other stories, but what I saw was I saw somebody getting robbed, and they took his sneakers because they didn't fit, and they threw them up on the. And I was like, wow. And I just looked down at my shoe because my shoe, it wasn't going to fit them either. So I'm like, they're going to throw my damn shit up there. But they never did. They never, I don't know why they never bothered me. They never, you know,
Maybe
it
it's
was
your
never.
six brothers.
Well, we lived that, it's a story that we lived on, I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
Okay,
I was raised by my mother's stepmother.
okay.
That's who raised me. That's who I call mommy. You know. And while I was living with mommy up in Caldwell, the story was that we lived on the second floor, fire escape to the front, and somebody, out there, back in those days, people did all kinds of treachery. They snatched my mama's purse
Oh.
while my brothers were on the fire escape. And the story is, like I said, I wasn't there. The story was that my older brother jumped down and they grabbed the guy and they kept him in the basement for about 2 days.
Okay.
This is what they told me, what other people told me, and I'm like, what? You guys kidnapped somebody? In my head, I'm like, whoa. And I was like, yeah. But then on Home Street, in the building with Rubie Dee, it was the thing, yeah. There were six of us. Don't, none of us we didn't look for fight. I was a good old boy. I didn't steal, I didn't rob, I didn't do nothing, none of those bad habit things. And I used to write on the wall, call myself like, "Oh, you're gonna be a graffiti guy." I was no graffiti
What
guy,
did you write?
and I wrote Little Man because the 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 black guys, since I was shorter, they used to always say, "Come here, little man, come here," and that just kind of stuck. And I put that, and then I would get fancy with it and try to put a crown on it, but that was like I would do that on abandoned buildings. I never did it in a building that somebody, because I would see graffiti or people tagging in the lobby of your building, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You live here." That, you know. But other than that, it was nice. I was raised along with black people. Back I knew
Mhm.
at 76. Prior to that, you know, um, you know, they didn't Puerto Rican and black didn't mingle. Or no correction, our parents
Got it.
didn't mingle. Because they had the old way. They were old, los cocolos, los negritos morenos, blah, 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 blah. Man, I ain't never had a black guy do nothing bad to me. Anytime somebody ever just got over on me, it was another Puerto Rican because I gave him my trust. I gave him mi hermano, and when I hugged him, he was in my wallet. I'm like, what the hell?
Mm,
So,
right. What high
and
school
so
did you go to?
I went to, well, I went to school in Puerto Rico. And I came back, I went to Monroe High School.
What was that again?
Monroe High School?
Monroe? Got you.
Yeah, I went to Monroe for a second, to tell you the truth. It wasn't, I don't know what it was, but I was a school guy my whole life. Um, they used to give gifts out at the end of the year for people that had good grades or good attendance or what. And my parents, yeah, of course, they kind of instilled that, but I was the one that said, I want to win that bike. I want to win that thing. It was me that said, yes, my parents pushed me as well, because you got to get up and go to school. But other than that, it was me. Yo era el que decía, yo quiero hacer esto. I wanted to do that. I thought it was cool at the end of the year when they call your name in the auditorium and you walked up there. That was, to me, that was the greatest. I've always liked to be in a crowd. I always like to, not necessarily the center of attention,
Mhm.
but yes, center of attention. I've always liked to be in a crowd. That's why in the softball, I became, at first, you try to be the best hitter or the best pitcher. And then I became a manager. And you travel and you meet all these wonderful people that are out there that other people would look at and say, don't mess with those, other Puerto Ricans or other blacks or Oh, it's a song. What was the word they used to use back then? It's a tecatos. I know you heard that, but
or
none of them
tijetos.
did drugs. They didn't do no drugs. They,
Right.
those tecatos, that's what they call. I'm like, what the hell? Why? Because
And tecatos is what
um,
we refer to drug addicts.
yes, yes. So they used to say call tecatos to in my early stages of my life. They used to if you are Puerto Rican, and I'm just talking about a Puerto Rican.
Mhm.
uh, Our parents, those were the ones that call everybody. Everybody was a fucking tecato. Everybody, excuse my word, French, but everybody was a tecato, and I didn't know why they said it. See, I didn't know that word racism. I didn't know what that was
Mhm.
because I went to school with with black. I hung out with black. Everything I did, there was a black person next to me mostly.
Yeah, it's a negative
You know,
characterization of them.
and so I grew up with we grew up together, and I'd never experienced racism until my adult life. That's when I realized what it was, and I said, "Oh, damn! That's why they didn't let me in the party when I was a kid. Or that's why they didn't want me." And I'm like, "Oh." But as a kid, I never, my
Right.
friends were my friends. You
Right.
don't see color; you just see, you
Absolutely.
know,
Yep.
los amigos.
Yep.
Or we call it "ese es mi pana."
Yep. Right. My pana. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
you were telling us that you saw breakers. Do you recall where you saw breakers or breakdancing or
Anytime,
rockers?
anytime I saw breakdancing was right around my neighborhood, right in my building, or at 23 Park, which was right down the street from us.
Right.
Anybody that does knew about hip hop or something like that back in those days, they knew that 23 Park was one of the parks where
Right.
people 23 Park and 63 Park, but 23 Park because it was the one right next to me. And I saw them people breakdancing. They were Hispanics, they were blacks, they were you know
Neighborhood
they,
kids.
yeah, they were break. And I remember once I saw somebody break dance, and the guy was kind of bow legged. Well, not kind of, he was bow legged. Not to the extreme, but he was bow legged.
Mhm.
And his steps, same steps everybody else did, looked so much nicer because he was bow legged. But he wasn't doing everything that everybody was doing, but he was just, the startup thing is what I would see him do. That guy was rest in peace, Keith Wiggins. Keith Cowboy from Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5. He lived, around the corner from us. And I saw them. I never tried to pick it up because, I'll get out there and do them. I still do the first couple of steps like that,
So
but I
you
don't.
saw Keith Cowboy breaking,
Right?
dancing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
And it's still
And
1976 time frame?
this was, yes, at that time, 76, 77.
Got it.
you know, um, and I would watch, I just watch these guys do the. I never thought that I can do it.
Right,
I'm
right.
like, man, you got to be in shape to do that breakdancing. Anybody that used to be a breakdancer or is still a breakdancer, those guys are in shape.
Right.
They might not look it, you might not actually, but don't know if you know my friend Crazy Legs. That and I call him young man, still. Um, those guys are in shape. That breakdancing kept people in shape. I always say New York City. I live out here in Houston, Texas. New York City, people um, are more are in better shape You walk everywhere in New York. You walk, take the bus, take the train. If you have a car when you got older, you know how that is. The car, oh, you got to change. You got to make sure it's on the right side of the street, or you got to, it's kind of like a hassle,
Yeah.
you know. And walking in, se- in the 77 blackout, I was at Shea Stadium watching the Mets.
I see the logo there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm a Met fan. I'm a Met fan. I like the Knicks, too, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anyway, there was no electricity, so the train wasn't running. We had to walk back, and it was just a day at the park, the way you call it. You didn't. Now you tell me go to the mailbox, and I'd be like, "Oh shit! Can I take the car? Like, what in the world?"
The mailbox around the corner.
It's right down, right there, half, a couple of houses down. And I'd be like,
Right,
but
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, New York life, and I tell people I would love to get in the garage in my chancletas, in my slippers, drive to Sonic, come right back. I never changed, never brushed my hair, never even left the car.
chancleta. That's what I wear, chancleta.
Exactly. That's the life. Hey, so Ruben, can you talk to us
Yeah.
about your earliest memory of the first time you went to a jam, whether that jam was outside, school park, or indoors?
Okay,
Talk to me about that.
the first time in '76 that I got exposed to hip hop or
What was going to be?
that kind of like, it wasn't called hip hop yet. So I'm gonna say that kind of music. I don't mean it in a bad way.
Yeah.
That kind of music,
Whether it's disco,
English music,
funk, R&B.
because to me back then it was salsa or English music, regardless what it was. To me, English music or salsa. I didn't listen to merengue. There was no such thing as bachata back then. I don't remember that. And so St. Mary's Park. I don't know if you know where that's at.
Yes, sir.
They we were playing the game there. Game was over. We were headed back home. We're walking, of course. But it was about 11, 12 of us. It was the whole team, you know. And I heard some music as we were coming out of St. Mary's Park. Heard the music. We looked that way, but we're not going over there. Colo's over there. Remember back in the day? That's what we're not going over there. But a young lady walked by, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I was like, whoa. And I remember telling the guys, look, and the guy saying, she's black. And I remember telling them, you don't see what I see. I'm like, whoa. I said, let's go over there. And they were like, no, we're not, we're not going to go over there. There was no lights. It was dark. You knew that it was nothing but black, Cocolos over there is what we call them back then, and the Moreno, And she went that way, and I hate to say it, I went after the guys left. I went after her. I kind of went behind her, stalking her. Like that. I didn't know that word back then, but now I think I was stalking her through the party, and I saw that she went all the way to the front with a rope. When they do the shows, they'll put a rope,
Mhm.
and she was right there. And I went up to and I just stood next to her. And the DJ playing his music, it was not there was no cutting being made, done, record words. Some of the songs of the breakbeat did extend it, yeah, but it wasn't like think wow, it was just kind of blended in. And I listened to it, and it got to a point where some of the songs I knew some of the music, so I knew how some of them would end it, and so I can kind of in my head envision the where the cut was gonna, where the blending was gonna make. And I remember I would close my eyes and kind of go, you know, and sure enough, whatever happened was happening right there. And one of those times when I closed my eyes and I opened it again, the DJ went, "Come here." So you know how it is. Once you go under the rope and you're there, now you're down.
Wow.
Everybody out there looks at you as part of that group, crew or whatever it was. But as I went under the rope, I grabbed the young lady that I'm telling you about. I grabbed her hand. Well, I actually grabbed her by the wrist. And I said, "Come on." And I held the rope on, and she didn't know. I said, "Come on." And she just, and on the way up there, I told her, "My name is Ruben." And she said, "I'm Terry of the High." And we just started talking to the DJ. Didn't know his name yet.
Okay.
It turned out to be, rest in peace, cool DJ AJ. And remember when I said earlier that I lived in the building and I was part of the tenant patrol, association? We had a center, a community center, and I offered to book him so he can play at the center. What he charged, whatever he wants to charge, whatever money comes in, it belongs to you. Nothing belongs to We just want to do the event. He agreed. Then the Wednesday, the day that was on a Saturday. The party was going to be the next Saturday, but that Wednesday he called me to tell me he couldn't do the party because he found he had a chance to make more money at a bigger place. And I was like, okay, I can't do no, you know what I mean? Can't do nothing about it. Um, I walked home that day from Third Avenue, and as I'm coming up Boston Road, I could hear the bass. I can feel bass, and I'm like, oh, there's music over there. Let me go there. I ain't got nothing to do. And I went there and they were playing. It turned out to be the L Brothers. They were playing. And I was like, oh, wow. And now these guys were a little more, to me, only to me, advanced than what the other group that I saw.
They're at a
Their
different
system,
level.
right? Their system was bigger. They had more people behind the ropes, and I just saw bigger. The next step up is that's what I assumed at the time. And I asked, I went there and I asked, turned out to be Mean Gene, who was the head of the L Brothers, Mean Gene, and I made him the same offer that I did AJ, and he took it. And they started to announce it right there.
Oh wow.
I said, hey, and he said, yeah, well, okay, gave him them. And he started to advertise, right there. Saturday came, the party, they were setting up, and right before it got to a point where now everybody got to go because the party generator is stuck, So you get everybody out. If you want to come back in, you got to pay. Um, I remember Mean Gene looking at me and telling me, "You can stay." And inside, I laughed because I said to myself, "I'll turn the damn party off. What are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
I'm the head guy. What
You
do you mean?
organized it.
You know, I got the key to the building. You know, but in my head, I'm laughing, and I'm like, cool. I mean, I said thank you, and the party went on. You know, and I fell in love with it. You know, I was like, whoa, look at this. And then somebody grabbed the microphone and started talking on the microphone. And I was like, yeah, I remember just turning, I'm like, to look at that person. And they were saying kind of rhymes, you know, they were saying rhymes. Um, I am going to say some of them were, I kind of heard before because they were nursery rhymes or, you know, the words were different, but, you know, it was like nursery rhymes, you know, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I became friends with them. Whenever they did a party, I would go if I had a chance. You know, just go. I didn't. They didn't charge me. You know, I could just go, and I could bring friends. It was like they let me and G, let me kind of just hang out. Turned out that they lived on Boston Road, and I used to walk by that place, and I saw them one day, and I'm like, "Wow, you guys live here? I live on home. You know, I lived in the building where we did the party at." And became friends with one of the L brothers. It's three of them: me, G, Cordio, and Theodore. Excuse me. And I became friends with Cordy to the point where we even got into I got him to come with me to a program where you go and they teach you brick masonry, electrical, plumbing, GED, mind you, got a high school diplomas, but GED. And you can take that class. Well, you have to take that class.
Mhm.
Um, and we would go there, and they gave us $185 every 2 weeks.
Wow. Back in the
Yeah,
late 70s.
yeah. 1977. I was 17.
That's some good cash back then.
Yes, yes, yes. Our parents weren't making. You know, when I started working, I realized um, I worked 40 hours, and after taxes and everything, my check was $88. You know,
They took it all.
and you make it work.
You make it
It,
work.
it, it stretched longer. You know, candy was 2 for a penny and stuff like that.
Right, right.
Now everything is, you know. Um, and so going to these parties, I needed to make cassettes. So somebody made me a cassette. I asked Cordy to make me a cassette. So he recorded one of the parties. I was at that party, and I got the cassette. You know, put it on my radio that doesn't speak English. Now
Mhm.
I had this cassette that when I was at home or in the park by myself over there, I would play it, listen to it, and I learned those words. One day they gave up. There was another party. They called them the hooky parties.
Mhm.
I went there. There was no MC. They had went from New York. They went down south to their grandmothers, and when me and Cordy were there. And when Cordy was DJing, he grabbed the microphone and gave it to me, and I was like, "No, you know, no." He said, "You can do it. You always saying the rhyme. Well, you know, together I would play the music and I would just rhyme, just say what they say." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to say what they say, but instead of saying I'm Kevy Kev, I would say he's Kevy Kev." You know, I made the rhyme toward or Robbie Rob at the time. You know, toward them. And like every party, a cassette was always popped in, and they would record. Long story short, the guys came back from down south. Um, and one day I was, now mind you, wait, let me stop there real quick. When I was doing that, in that moment where that time frame, when I did that show where I lived at,
Hmm. Right.
there was a project, Park Price down the street. There was a young man, his name carried Tree. They used to call him DJ Tree.
DJ Tree, got you.
Supreme. Supreme, DJ Supreme Tree. And Supreme and his brother Hutch. And they used to have another guy with them, Mike. You used to call him Magic Mike. He was nice. Magic Mike was nice. Um,
That's the
they were
fantastic.
always,
No,
huh?
fantastic partners.
I don't know what they were called.
Got it.
um, to truth be told, and so when they were always in the park.
Hmm.
Tree used to eat. I don't know if he's a bad guy or something. I don't know what it was. Never with me, but I saw. You know, I became friends with him. I would go to his house. I would eat at his dinner table with his mom. You know what I mean? And I would go and I would grab the microphone at his parties. Tree had like an open mic. He didn't have MC, so it was like an open mic. Anybody wanted to, but it was myself and another guy. We called him Sugar Bear, and we started to. That was my first time that I actually wrote rhymes, and I started to write a few rhymes. Nothing spectacular, just simple rhymes, and I would do it with Tree. One day, I was gonna go buy some weed. That's what. And I was walking up Boston Road, and as I'm walking by, Rob, at the time his name was already changed to Master Rob. Come, he said, "Hey man, what's up, Rube? Come with me. We're gonna give you a chance to get down with a real crew." And I was like, "Okay." So we walked to where he was taking me. We went into the building. I knew this is the same building where I'm gonna go buy the weed at. And we get to the second floor. You know how normally back in those days you knock on the door, it opens up, you put some money through it, put some weed through it. He knocked on the door and they opened the door. And I was like, oh shit. He said, come on, Rube.
You
I'm
only
like,
got the
come on,
people.
Rube. Right. And I'm like, come on, Rube, what are you talking about? We went into the weed house, into the cheaper spot. Like they call it cheaper.
Right, right.
Went into the cheaper spot and there was a lot of speakers there. I remember they had a lot of speakers and everybody was there. I was the only non-black there. And Trevor, who was the manager of the Elbow, Jamaican guy, was there, and Kevin. And I remember Kevin said to me, "Yeah, we're gonna put you down, but you're gonna listen to what we have to say." And I was like, "Okay," until I don't want to, but okay.
Right.
And at the time, the group consisted of the L brothers, me, Gene, Cordio, Theodore. Um, the MCs were Kevin Kev, Robbie Rob, and Starsky at the time.
Busy
Then,
Bee or Love Bug?
no, Busy Bee. His name was Starsky. When he first, I remember one day when, prior to all this, I was on the bus with him, and he was going to school. I was going to work, and on his loose leaf, he had the word Star. And I was trying to read it, and I'm like, what does it say there? And he said, Starsky. And I said, what's that? And he said, that's me. And I'm like, okay. why are you stars? You know, he said, I'm an MC. And along the way, I never used to see him at practice. And one day, you know, when once everything got, in fact, when I was put down with the group, he wasn't there. He wasn't there. And Busy Bee was down with the group, but Busy um, Starsky used to like to go, like myself, to parties, you know, black parties or whatever. I went and looked, enjoyed myself. He would get on the microphone, everybody's microphone. Master Rob said, you're like a bee, you're like a busy bee. That's how he got his name. You're pollinating from here to here, busy bee. I was like, oh, you know, that's how, anyway. And then it changed from Starsky because there was another Starsky, Love Bug, rest in peace. Um, so that kind of ended that. And
Now, what were you called at that time, right? L Brothers or kind of
they
transition?
were the L brothers. Um, a lot of people think L brothers stood for Livingston because Mean Gene Cordy and Theodore last name is Livingston.
Right.
But no, Gene had it where his brothers, Kevin and Rob, were his first, you know, MC. Their brothers, they were called the Love Brothers. That's where the L come from. Chevy Chev wasn't having none of that BS. Dang on now. I'm going, and along the way, they changed it to L Brothers. But the original, Love Brothers, which I had to fly with me and I'll show you. Um, so, and the MCs were Kevin Kev, Rubie Dee, Robbie Rob, Starsky. And we were good. We were, you know, I you know, sometimes I think back at that group. You know how sometimes whatever something in your life, for a girlfriend or job, and you say what could have been, you know, that was one of the things that I always say, wow, maybe not, but you know, I just always said, that group that was pretty group, you know. And we did a party. My first party was at the PAL, 181st Street, I believe, Webster, and they were battling Cool Herc and the Herculoid. They had a DJ named Clark Kent, and there was an MC,
What year
Kenny
was this?
Ken.
What year was this
This
battle?
was this was 77, 70, no, this was 70, yeah, 77, 76, 77. Right at the time, the story that I'm telling you about how I met AJ, and I got to New York City in 76 in the summer, the beginning of the summer. By the next summer, 1977, I had already went from the L Brothers and um, left the L Brothers, the MCs and Theodore. We left the L Brothers. We became the Fantastic Four, and Rob, Master Rob. Rob was like our talent scout or whatever. He's the one that heard me on a cassette and said, "Hey, this guy's good. Let's put him down." And now his brother always said no. Kevin loved that guy to death, but he'll always say, "Nah, we don't need him." That's the way he was. We don't need him. He's not as good as us. That's the way he is. Um, and in the process of being the Fantastic Four, Busy Bee left. I don't know. He left, got kicked out. I don't know. Or I know he wasn't there no more. We still kept the name Fantastic Four because Kevin, Rob, and myself and Theodore, we were four. So we kept the Fantastic Four. And I remember Rob one day came in, um, mind you, this is about, oh man, 7, 8 months, 10 months of being the Fantastic Four. He said, hey, and he talked us into listening to these two MCs, um, audition, let's call it an audition.
Okay.
I guess that's the correct word. And they came and they went into that little routine. I remember myself, and I looked at Rob, and Rob, we were all like, you looked at Kev was like, I mean, that's just him. Um, but, and those two guys were Whipple Whip, Prince Whipple Whip, who's half Puerto Rican also, and Dada Rock. And we became the Fantastic Five. You know, at the beginning, back in those days, the DJ's name was the most, you know, the DJ's name go up and then
Right.
the MCs. That's the way it was. Ran with the Theodore and the Fantastic Five, or however. Later on, you know, a year later, 2 years later, stuff started to turn around where it was the Fantastic Five featuring the Ran with the Theodore.
Got it.
You know, it just changed. And most groups did that. They changed, you know, um, the way that they presented the DJs and the MC on a flyer, you know.
Right.
And we became the Fantastic Five. And we took advantage of the fact that I was Puerto Rican. There was no other Puerto Rican doing it. And we noticed, now mind you, every block party or party that was given, there were Puerto Rican Latinos, but I'm going to Puerto Rican, but in the crowd, they were always, as far as, mm, how can I say this? The hip hop world, when there was a party, block party or something like that, Latinos were there, Puerto Ricans were there. And I go back to Puerto Rico because that's where I am. Puerto Rico on stage they weren't there, but they were there. You know,
Except for you.
they don't, except for me until I got there. Right now, mind you, I've heard sometimes I cannot make the connection, but that's not, you know, that's only
Yeah.
one opinion. How they say hip hop, the five elements, or whatever, the graffiti and the breakdancing and this, and I'm like, I never, graffiti was out way before hip hop was out. To me, I remember as a kid,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
1966, 6 year old, I saw trains. It was there. Some people say, oh, it was in 19, and the man, I was 6 years old living in the Bronx. Probably, I saw that.
Hmm.
You know, who did it? I don't know. Were they black? Were they white? Were they Hispanics? I don't know. But there it was. It was always there. As far as the breakdancing, um, you know, back then how they did the house music and so the guys would do the up rock thing. People were breakdancing to that music too.
Right.
Um, that came later, before what we call hip hop,
Right.
but later, you know. And so you see why sometimes I'm like, well, how do you figure that graffiti? And oh, because they every time we did a block party, they were breakdancing. Oh, I saw them breakdancing at other parties,
Right.
other venues that were not hip hop per se, you know. And
Clubs.
right, like you went to a club, people weren't doing that at the club. Really. Yeah, the up rock, that thing was. I used to hate it. It would take over a club, and it was time for me to go to my salsa clubs because
Right, right. Gotcha.
you know, I wasn't really a dancer as far as in English music. So I just used to like to watch the girls, and hang out, watch the girls some more, you know. And when you're doing that, and now I can't see the girls because you're jumping in the way, and I don't really like that, so I'm out of it to go to a salsa club, and I can dance there, and I was just a little short guy, 5'5", had a lot of hair, decent shape, and I can dance salsa music with the best of them. So that was how I got the girls.
Did you
And
hustle also?
I did the hustle, yes, I did hustle, but because hustle and salsa music are it's like the same thing. I mean, as far as the terms, just, just I found it easy because I knew salsa. So they I would leave those places, and that just so I never made that. I don't know. To this day, I still look at it. I'm like, but people tell me, "Oh, the element, this and this and that," and I'm like, "Oh man, I don't make the connection. I'm sorry. That's
Gotcha, gotcha.
only me. That's only my opinion. I just don't. When I first started, when I got down, when when I reached the major leagues, is what I call it, because I did other things like with Tree and those and other. You know what I'm saying? Now, boom, I'm in the major leagues. I'm with the L Brothers. And this is, on par with anybody that was out there at the time. There was a lot of groups that were not out there when I first started, Crash Crew, Funky Four, Cold Crush, you know, the, a lot of those groups, they were non-existent. Grandmaster Cass was out. I remember I used to always hear that name, Casanova Plaza music, actually. And I actually saw him as Casanova Fly, and I thought he was good. you know, he could DJ and he could. And then I Love Bug Starsky did the same thing, and I'm like, well, these guys, damn, I like that. And when I first started, my name was DJ Rubie O. Don't know how to DJ. Don't know. I got me a shirt, could put letters on them. Them iron-on letters. DJ Rubie O. Um, I was a plumber, so I did work in some for a company called M Farming and Son. Anyway, I did work. A lot of it was commercial, but every now and then you get these private gigs from somebody you might meet along the way. Lady's ex said that her sink and this and that at her house was a little needed a little help. Can I help? She gave me her address. I went. Um, don't really got no tools. I got a pair of pliers and some they call it some plumber's tape and putty. And I'm like, okay, let's go see what I can do. There's a pair of channel locks. Let me see what I can do. And everything was loose. I just reconnected everything, retaped it. I didn't do it. It was not anybody could have done that.
Mhm.
If you knew it was simple because I knew the work. And I wore my shirt, that sweatshirt, DJ Ruby O. I had that on because it was kind of cool. So it was a sweatshirt, so I had it over my clothes, my other shirt. I took it off too. And when I put it back on, the lady said, the black lady, In Spanish, she said, "A dónde?" And I'm like, "Huh? Yeah, what? Excuse me?" She said, "DJ Ruby O." She said, "A dónde?" And I caught it. "A dónde soy Ruby O?" It means blonde, Rubio.
Ah,
So she was like, "A dónde tú eres Rubio?" And
got it.
without saying the whole thing, she said, "A dónde?" I'm like,
That's right.
"Uh,
Rubio is blonde.
yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Holy shit!" I never thought about it. I just said Ruby, and let me add an O. Let me just. Okay, this lady turned out to be a real famous lady, and she gave me my name, Rubie Dee,
Okay. Who was she?
and she and she said, "I'm gonna spell it for you," and she spelled it Rubie, Rubie Dee. She said, "Not like her speaking to me." She said, "You're gonna spell it like this. You're not gonna spell it like my name. What is your name?" She turned out to be the black actress Rubie Dee.
Get out.
You remember her? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I remember going back, getting rid of my sweatshirt, going to the thing, and now I was Rubie Dee. And that's so when I got down with the elbow, I was already Rubie Dee because she had gave me that name from me fixing the damn sink one day, just tightening some, and that's how I got my name.
Where did you meet her? Where did you meet her again?
And I was working. Okay, the company that I worked for, and Farman and Sons, when the World Trade Center was going up,
Hmm.
they got the contract with Tower B to put in the water, what is it, the cold water machine.
Right.
Mind you, back then it was copper, so you had to put some welding on
Right. The
the
water fountains.
copper. Right, the water fountain. There you go. And so you had, it connects to it's copper with the low welding. So from ground floor to the 72nd floor, and Farmer and Son had that contract. I was one of the helpers because I helped the plumber. I wasn't a, plumber plumber. And it was easy work, it was easy work. So I did all that, not the whole building, but I did it. It took a while. We were there for a long time doing those 72 floor. There's a lot of water fountains on every goddamn floor. And you got to run the pipes to them too, So that kind of, in that process, I also, sometimes if I wasn't working there, they would send us over, "Oh, we can't do no work here today. We're going to send some of you." So they sent me to the Chrysler building to do some work. In the Chrysler building, during one of I was the gopher. When break time came, they sent me to go get everybody's breakfast or their lunch or I made a little change because they never wanted their change back. That was,
Mhm.
and in one of those runs, I went to get some bagels for them, and I met the lady, and I just spoke to her and said, "Hi, just regular good morning." I'm kind of like a people's person, so I'm pretty good making friends or whatnot. And she saw my, you know, she saw my diploma, my uniform. She said, "Oh," and we just started to talk as we were ordering bagels. And she said, "Can you come to my house? Can you?" And I'm saying, "Yeah." She gave me her address, and I remember going to go back then. You had a phone at home. You had to go pay phone and called her, and she said, "Come on down." And I went and I did it, and that's how I met her. That's how I became Rubie Dee. That's how my name became Rubie Dee
Got it. Awesome. Now,
with the guys.
yeah. All right. So the first crew you were with, the first group you were with, the L Brothers. Can you talk to us about the venues, the clubs that you
Well,
guys performed
yeah,
at?
with with the L brothers. Now, mind you, the addresses.
Sure.
Some of them I remember. Some of them, you know. But we used to play at the PAL, at the T Connection,
Okay.
at a place called the Sparkle. I think that was on Jerome somewhere. The Third Avenue Ballroom. Um, I don't know if you remember back in those days. There was a theater called Dover.
No. Okay.
So we used to play at a place, and it was called Over the Dover because it was on top of
Got it.
Over the Dover. Um, that place. Wow. I'm trying to think other places that we played at. The Renaissance Ballroom, the Audubon Ballroom, uh, Celebrity Club. No, I'm lying. Celebrity Club, we were not Elbows. Um, most of those, like, I swear that the L Brothers had a residency at the Sparkle.
Mhm.
They were, I mean, and at
Spark.
the T Connection, and the T Connection, we were always there. And at the T Connection, I remember the owner there, Richard T. Don't know what the T stands for. I remember Richard T. He had a radio on Fordham Road. He had a radio shack, a radio place, a place where he sold records, cassette tapes, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so any tape, if you played at the T Connection, he recorded it. That was just you did it on his system. You didn't have to bring nothing. You know, so he would sell these cassettes, and I remember going there to get cassettes of myself. He wouldn't charge me for them, but here, and I was like, wow. And he made the better cassettes than what we made because his stuff was clear and it was perfect. And what was the name of those cassettes? Remember the Memorex cassettes that
Yep.
came out back then? And there was another one that was red and yellow, TD. I don't know.
TDK.
Yes, that's it. That's it. And so those were the places that I played with the elbow. Once fantastic, whether it was 4 or 5, that's when I started. Um, Still did the T Connection. We didn't do the Sparkle stuff like that. We started doing Harlem World, Celebrity Club on 125th Street, Audubon Ballroom, the Savoy Manor. I believe that's on Third Avenue, kind of almost going down that hill. Um, and all these other places where the big dogs played, Major League. That's what I called it. Now it's the Major League. And because back on the block, back at the ranch, that was the little thing. Said, well, made it to the major leagues. And I'm like, yeah, right. Because we were always playing softball or something. And I'm like, yeah. I didn't see it. I did not have that vision. It was something that I did because I stalked that one young lady. Oh, by the way, that young lady, Terry Flavor, is the mother of my oldest child. So
All right. It worked out.
yeah, it worked out.
You got her under those ropes, and you were the man.
And we had a daughter who was a boy all the way until she was born because the picture, the sonogram, whatever you call that, her umbilical cord was kind of in front of her, and it looked like she had
Yeah.
a male part. And when she came out, we were like, Oh my God. I remember saying, whoa, let me go tell her mom, the grandmom, hey, it's not a boy, it's a girl. And she said, what? I said, yeah. And there was a little girl with her grandmother. That little girl might have been 3, 4 years old. Boy, she was being bad,
Uh-huh.
loud, running, and grandma could not contain her. And she just kept yelling out her name, and yelling out her name, and yelling out her name. When I went back in the room, and I'm not kind of sweet tears here, but when I went back in the room, Terry asked me, what are we going to name her? I remember saying, Shaniqua. She said, where you get that name from? I'm like, man, there's a little girl out there. And her name was Shaniqua. So my daughter's name is Shaniqua.
Awesome. Oh wow.
I,
That's definitely a great story.
yeah, so, and then the name of middle, us, most Latinos, they, at that time, I'm talking about, our names were your first name, your father's last name, and then your mother's last name. I had no middle name. Um, but I remember her asking, "What's going to be her middle name?" I'm like, "A middle name? You know, like middle name? What the hell?" And she convinced me into it. So I said, "Okay, let's do something that rhymes with Garcia." So her name is Shaniqua Nakia Garcia.
Nakia. Beautiful. Beautiful name, man.
That
Wow.
that's where that came from.
Wow. Hey, so
But back
tours.
to the club. Back to the club. We played in a lot of those clubs. Some clubs were they were all great. You know, but some are more prestigious than others.
Right.
Some might be not as prestigious, but bigger venue. You know, the Audubon Ballroom was a big jam venue, but the place was whack. I mean, to me, the
Right.
T Connection was a big venue. I, you know, okay, it was one of the better places. The Celebrity Club was an. I liked certain clubs, Celebrity Club. I liked Harlem World, um, Renaissance Ballroom. You know, some of those places like that. There were other places that we played at. We would play at the Queen's Armory. I'll tell you a story about the Queen's Armory.
Huh?
We went there. We arrived. They had sent cars for us. We arrived. We were stepping out the car. The crowd is out there. Don't know exactly what was going on, but it was a mile to where one of the guys that was putting on the show, you know, a promoter, producer, one of the guys that was paying us,
Right.
he was out there with some security. These guys have taken guns and shot them in the air. Pow, 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 pow. I swear, everybody took about 4 or 5 steps that way and came right back. And that to me, I was like, whoa, I've never seen a crowd like that before. You know, hell, gun, you ain't got to shoot it. Everybody scatters, you know. This time it was shot up in the air and came back. And during the show, after we performed, we were coming backstage and a group of guys was coming in backstage. And they were coming there to rob the place. And they asked for the producer, rest in peace, I believe, Man Dip, like they asked for him, and we were like, we don't, we don't know where he's at. You know, we were looking for him
Mm.
because it was time to get paid.
Right.
We were looking for him.
Right. When you find them, break
He
me
had,
out.
he had got when those guys. Now, mind you, I'm just guessing here, but those guys were coming over there, and he took off. We had to go find him. We went to his house to go find him. And the story that he told us was, man, those guys were coming, and here's your money. But those guys were coming, and if they would have got me, they'd have took all the money, and you guys wouldn't get paid. We were like, okay. And, we didn't think nothing bad about it. We didn't ask, why are they looking for you? We just give me my money. And that happened to us in those early days where the promoter, producer, whatever you want to call them, they'll take off. You
Right.
don't get paid unless you go find them. And we were good about, we come to your house. We were pretty good about getting our money, you know. And but that was at the Queen's Armory. We never played there again. I believe we were invited again several times. But I wasn't brave like that. I'm like, no, I don't want to go over there.
I
I
hear
was
you.
no, I wasn't no punk or scared, but I would. Why would I?
Yeah.
You know what might happen. I don't want to play there. I don't want to go there. That's just not. And there were a lot of places that we did not play in because when we were talking amongst ourselves, we came to the conclusion. Majority of the team like, no, we don't want to play there for whatever reason. You know, we don't want to play there. Some places were different. The Disco Fever. Hear the name? Disco Fever.
Mhm.
There was no rap groups there, The Cool Kyle was the MC, and Cool Kyle, the star child, my friend, he was disco MC. The style of disco. And
Mhm.
then the who was the DJ? Oh my God, Puerto Rican guy. They were coming to. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. Junebug.
Okay. That's right.
His name was DJ Junebug. Now, mind you, I had seen Junebug. You know what I told you? Because I had my little chivita and stuff, I
Right.
looked a little older than what I actually was. I dressed the part too, And I used to go to a club called 371.
Okay.
That was DJ Hollywood there, way back in the day. And his second, like, every DJ had a second DJ or something like that.
Backup.
They always had. Junebug was that guy. I don't know how he got. I heard stories, but since don't know the story, I can't tell them. But the owner, Sal Albertello, I think his name, from the Fever, he went and he recruited Junebug to his to the Disco Fever,
And what
and
do
I
you
was
remember what year you played? You saw Junebug play at the Disco Fever?
oh 77, 77. That's when because that's when at first I was just with the group, like I didn't since I'm going to say it like that. That music was not my preferential music.
Right.
I didn't go to I didn't go see anybody. And if you wanted me to pay at the door, I definitely wasn't going to go see you. You know, and that was yeah, that was it. Junebug. He was the DJ there. There wasn't when I started. There was if there were like I said other neighborhoods somewhere else in New York. I don't know. I wasn't there. I did not appoint myself as the first Latino, as the first Puerto Rican. I didn't do that. They did that.
Right.
African Americans, the black, and they would do it. They all say that's the first guy. You ask now, that's the first guy. There's people out there. Oh, I was there. Oh, I was there. Well, I never heard of you. I'm sorry. I
Gotcha.
don't.
No, it
You
is.
know, I never heard of you. Where? You know, and I hate to say it this way, but I am anyway. Back then, there were people, there were Latinos, and when they got around black Americans, they would not say that they were Latinos. Like they were scared, ashamed. I don't know what was the reason, you know, but they didn't. I, on the other hand, that's shit. I got it tattooed on me.
Right.
I'm Puerto Rican. There's no,
Right. Right.
you know, Prince Whipper Whip, guy that was down with us, or is down with us, half Puerto Rican. I didn't know he was half Puerto Rican until about a year. And I happened to the group one day with him walking on Grand Concourse, going towards his house, and a lady calls him Jaime, right? And he said, "Oh," I'm like, what? Wait a minute, you speak Spanish?" You know, and he said, "We look así," and he kind of broke his back. And he said, "That's tu mamá," and she said, "Ay, that's your mom." Where do you get your fucking name? Where do you get Whipper from? Oh my God, like everything makes sense. I'm like, wow. I never asked why you didn't. I'm like, he said, "I thought you knew." I'm like, no, I didn't know until that point. I never asked him why. He ain't tell me. He ain't tell. We didn't know. He was just a light skinned black guy to us. That's what he was. um, but once I found out, of course, I'm gonna go back. Puerto Rican. See, because when we did shows, sometimes there was stuff incorporated as me. For example, there was a show one time where the part came on that when they put me on, Rubie Dee, get on the mic and do your thing. I would start speaking Spanish, you know, not a rhyme, just a couple of words in Spanish. ¿Por qué tú quieres que yo cante? And they would say, hold up. They would do it like an echo. It was four. They were four. They go, hold up, hold up. Oh, Rubie Dee, Rubie Dee, hold up. This is not Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. This is America, America. Do your thing. And then then they'll cut the music that I'm actually going to rhyme off of. And I will go into it in English. And, little thing, because this Puerto Rican, porque este Puerto Rican could rock. Little phrases like that I would throw in.
Do you have a favorite line, a rap that
Oh
just
yeah, yeah,
sticks with
well,
you? Would
my name. See, I never had a man. I'm gonna call it, and I'm probably every MC in the world is probably gonna say he don't know what he's talking about. My startup rhyme.
Okay.
That's what I called it. I didn't have one. I just when you put me on, whatever rhyme came in my head that I have wrote down or whatever, because I was not a freestyler. And to the day, if you give me a rhyme, but I will always revert back to things that I know, words that but as far as just off the top of my head, I see some guys do whip a whip. That's what he did. I thought he was awesome, but I knew I'd say he ain't right. None of those rhymes. That's just that's he
Yeah.
was just going and made it real good. And we went on tour once.
Talk to us about tours. Yes.
We went on tour with Sugar Hill,
Okay.
and something happened with one of their artists, one of the groups. Don't know if they were being punished, kicked out. They didn't want to go. they had another. I don't know why. Well, they did not make that. They were not going to do that tour. The people from Sugar Hill approached us and asked us to take that slot. Of course we're going to say yes, but they wanted us to do their record.
Yeah.
Funky Four is the group in question. They wanted us to do their record, and we're not going to do that. We were just not going to do it. They agreed to let us do what we do, and we did what we did, and we kicked butt. You know how they say you kick butt and took names. We took butts and didn't give a damn what your name was. That's the way I'd say it.
What year was that you toured?
This was 78.
Wow. And where'd you go? Here throughout the state, in New York?
So as I say, we went to Washington, D.C., uh, Norfolk, Virginia. That was the Scope Center in Norfolk, Virginia. We went to Savannah, Georgia. We played at, I want to say it was called the Scope Center as well. And we went on bus, it was on buses. And there were R&B groups there, you know, and we will always be the first group after the R&B. We were no names, we're not even on the flyer. People that are there don't even know when we come out, they don't know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know if we're the Funky Four. They don't know what we were. Fantastic Five at the time, and we did our shows the way we do our shows, and it turned out good. We did what we did. After the shows when we got back home, um, the pay wasn't, but yeah, I take it as the experience. I remember walking out there on stage, and for a couple of seconds, I was in awe at the Scope Center in Savannah, Georgia, Norfolk, Virginia. I remember walking out there and looking around at all the people. I was like, whoa, like, wow. Mind you, the music is playing. We have a routine. There's something that groups do. There's some groups still do it today.
Mm-hmm.
That I hate. I've always hated. You get on the microphone and you just start talking. That's what it came to hear you talk. It came to hear you rap, to perform, not to get on the mic. Oh yeah, how you doing? I'm like, whoa. I never liked that. I never liked when we go to a party and it's time for you to perform, and you grab the microphone and you go testing, 1, 2, check, testing, checking. But that to me I hated that. So we came around and we did something and we started to do the mic check. Later on, somebody else used it, but my mic sounds nice. Check one, my mic, and you keep saying it until your mic sounds nice. Once your mic sounds nice, you pass it to the next guy. My mic sound nice. Check one. My mic sound nice. Check one. My mic sound nice. Check two. And we'll give it to the next guy, and he'll go through his thing. And mind you, the person over there is either turning it up or turning it down or doing whatever they do to make our voices sound better. Later on, somebody else used it, and that back in the day, nothing was copyrighted.
Right.
Hell, Whipping Down the Rock was called the Salt and Pepper MCs. There's a female group called Salt and Pepper.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, that my mic sounds nice.
They did it too.
That's yeah, right.
They
Exactly.
did it too. Yep, that was it. That was a Fantastic Five.
Got it.
That was actually Dr. Rocket Whip Whip. That they used to do something like that, and we incorporated it to ours because, like I said, I just hate the way they grab the mic and testing one, testing. The mic should be. That's what sound check is for. You know, before the party. At the time, we weren't doing that other than to the when we went on tour with Sugar Hill, we had to be at the venue at a certain time to do your sound check. And they made it when it was your turn. That mic was going to be the way you wanted it. That was my first.
Right.
That's the first time I was exposed to that, and it made all the sense in the world. It just makes all the sense in the world. And so we did that, and so also when people get on stage back then, even now, they're walking around just yeah, yeah, what the fuck is that? I mean, what is that to me? So we got it to a point where from the moment they say, and remember Grandma did on the Fantastic Five, and that beat comes on, that first boom, whatever record it is, that's all part of the show. You start walking up the steps onto stage or walking down, or however it was that you got on stage, that's when you did it. And it was all time. You got to listen to it because it's going to change, and then you got to say what you got to say for the next one to come out, and you make it a show instead of just walking up on stage. You make it a show. We walk one at a time. Some of us got loud cheers. Some of us didn't get loud cheers. Some of us that got loud cheers yesterday. Next week at the next venue, you get a cheer, but you don't get that loud. The other people get the loud cheer. Mind you, when we did do places um, in the Bronx, and I'm going to say the Bronx, or Manhattan, some place, when Rubie Dee walked on stage, I was not the best. I wasn't the best one. I wasn't, you know, but just the fact being Puerto Rican, that was like I was like a novelty. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
right. So anyway, so we went on that tour with Sugar Hill on the bus. On the bus, I was trying to write a rhyme, and I wanted to start it with Rubie Dee is my name, and I'm a Puerto Rican, and I'm stuck, and I'm on Rubie Dee is my name, and I'm a Puerto Rican, and there was nothing. Somebody walked by and said, "You might think I'm black by the way I'm speaking." And I opened the curtain. It was Spoonie G from the Treacherous Three. And I looked at him. I remember going, "Got it. Vaya. Got it. Now, Rubie Dee is my name, and I'm a Puerto Rican. You might think I'm black by the way I'm speaking." And then I described myself slick, very handsome, with a lot of curls. That's the reason I attract all the cute black girls. That's my favorite rhyme. No matter where, to this day, I have other rhymes. I have better rhymes. To this day, whenever I go to a show, regardless where it's at, regardless who I'm with, if you pass up mic to me, and the first rhyme that I'm going to say is Rubie Dee is my name, and I'm a Puerto Rican. You might think I'm black, by the way. I'll go into that. And
The first time I heard you say that, I was actually at the FDR Drive in Manhattan at the amphitheater.
really,
Yeah, and I forget
okay,
whether they were taping in 81 or 82, but I remember I was in middle school, and
oh
everyone's
wow,
saying they're jamming at the amphitheater, they're jamming at the amphitheater. So I grabbed my girl, here I am, 13 years old, and we start going. And then all of a sudden I see the amphitheater and there's something going on and there's a big jam. That's
you're
you.
talking about you're talking about the wild style.
Wow style, baby.
Got you.
I was there for the Wild Style filming at the amphitheater. Yes, sir. And I remember you saying that, and it just stuck
It's
with
the first time. It's the first time I always say.
Yep.
The amphitheater was a good. Something happened, and the Furious couldn't do it. They were contractually, Sugar Hill Records, so they went. They didn't do it for some reason.
Right.
They did everything prior, but then the part of the, they're not on Wild Style,
Right.
for whatever political reason, that they had back in those days. And so everything kind of changed when they weren't there. So now all of a sudden our entrance was different. We didn't know, oh shit, because what are we going to do now? I mean, we had something already,
Yeah.
but back in those, no, there was no back and forth. But you want to be better than the next group. You want to be as good or better, So the measuring stick were furious
Right.
in the story. They were furious. There was a moment in time, and I'll say this, and regardless of what people, there was a moment in time that we were the best. But it wasn't long. We were we were the group.
You were at the top.
We were the we were the group, and so as we were getting ready to do the scene, we were like, now mind you, this is the day of the recording. Oh shit, what are we gonna do? And we said, we can come down here and just come through the crowd. Kevin said, let's go back there and do the same thing. And so we ran down, that's right in Wildstar at the end of the amphitheater. We're running down the aisle to get on stage. If you notice, he said my name last, because you always go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was 5. But I'm the first one that gets on stage. I was always the first one on stage. This was not, something that I like. I don't remember if it was something that I said, hey, I want to be the first one. It was more group. Everything was kind of, the group would say, yeah, you go up there. Kevin, yeah. And so the way I saw it, what we saw it was, I'm the Puerto Rican guy in the group. If I can get on stage and whatever I do, I rock it, the rest of the group is going to do way better than me.
Mm.
That was my philosophy, That was the way I apply myself to it. I just need to be real good. And if I can make you scream when I come out, little short Puerto Rican, and I already knew, or the guy would tell you that they'll say, when we were here, we knew that we got them. They knew that we got the crowd, and Master Rob. One day in '78, this is pre-Fantastic Five, the Celebrity Club. It was Kevin, Rob, myself, and Theodore. And remember the part when I tell you Puerto Rican or Latinos were always at the parties or the block party. Or when I joined the L Brothers and we left, I don't know prior to, but for what they were telling me were, once the word got out that, hey, one of those guys is Puerto Rican, there were a lot of Puerto Ricans that didn't even give that kind of music the time of day.
Right.
And those guys started to, hey, let's go check out the Puerto Rican guy.
You got fans.
Yeah. And I had fans in my softball career thing, a lot of people. But now I got Puerto Rican fans. in the music thing, the women, but I was into this other, to the hip hop.
Right.
So, that beautiful senorita, I wasn't looking at that. I was looking to this fine ass mama over here, and it was different. I was asked many times, my parents, friends, do you feel, are you scared when you go to those parties? Are you, you know, there were lots of parties that there were not that many Puerto Ricans, or where I felt like I was the only one. You know, did I feel some kind of way like, oh my God, I'm here with all these black guys? Oh no, that never crossed my mind. I was never, I was never rejected, as as far as I know. Maybe in private people were saying, but to my face, I was never rejected, and you know
They're
that
your
was
people. Those are your people. Period.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Could you
To
back
the
up a little and can we talk about, if you don't mind, when you first heard that you guys were going to be on the documentary Wild Style? What was the first time you heard that? Can you talk about that and what led
yeah,
up to you
well,
guys being in that documentary?
we play downtown. I'm glad. See, now other clubs come to mind. The Mud Club downtown. I can't remember where it was. But you think Mud Club, it was a white club. It was a rock and roll club or whatever. It was
Hmm?
not a Latino black club.
Right.
But we played there, and oh my God, there's another one that'll come to you. And we played there. By playing there through those places, we met Tata Freddy, and through him, because he's the one. People don't say this about him, but dude, Tata Freddy took a black thing because it's a black thing. Hip hop is a black thing. Took that to a Caucasian and said, "Here, check this out," and they liked it. It was him. You ever heard Blondie on her song Rapture?
Mhm.
Fat Bob Freddy told me everybody's style. DJ, Flash is bad, Flash is cool. That was, I mean, she started off her verse saying, Fat Bob Freddy told me everybody's style.
Mhm.
So I do only, and it's me, I give him a lot of credit into taking hip hop um, into what it is worldwide because at
Absolutely.
that time,
And he doesn't get his flowers. So thank you.
right, yeah, that time remember, there was no internet. How did people hear about us? You know how people heard about it? We used to give out flyers. How do you remember those cassette tapes?
Hmm.
Do you remember those the OJs and the Touch It Clydes, those luxury taxis that you would call?
Right, right, right.
They had, we will give it to them.
The car service with the big, nice black ones.
Yeah, it could be there was a brand called OJ. We used to use the Touch It Class 999. This guy used to come pick us up in a nice car, and we gave him. He would come take us to the club, go work. He knew what time to come back. We'll call him. We've done, get on the phone on the. You had to go over there and dial it and get him to come back, and that's how our music, not just ours, anybody, the theory is, and anybody who was in the music went around New York through those cab services. Those cab services, that was our YouTube, our internet. That
Right.
was because you called for somebody for a car, a luxury car in Queens, and you're going to a wedding, or and he arrives and he's playing that music, and you know like he said, I would turn it up, but a lot of times people would say, "Hey, turn that up." Hey, who's that? Where is that? Or and that was a way of, and of course we used to give him flyers.
Mhm.
He kept some flyers in his car all the time. I said, "You give those flyers out," you know, and that was the way. That was our social media
Right, right.
venue.
There you go. That was your Instagram of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's everybody. Anybody you speak to anybody back then, that was it. You either gave out flyers or your cassette made it into one of those cars, and they just traveled to New York City. I've met people in Far Rockaway that I ain't never been to Far Rockaway.
Yeah.
Now here I am, and people are like, "Yo, Rubie Dee," blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "How do you know my rhyme? How do you know my rhyme?" Because I didn't. I'm the first one to tell you I didn't have a whole lot of rhymes back then. When I was solo, I did. Once I joined the group, I became a group MC. So yes, I still wrote, but it was more. My mentality was, how do I make the group better? Whether it's by me saying something, whether it's by me shutting up, or dressing, because I always dress different from the guys. Sometimes I dress with them, but I've never liked. I like to be myself.
Mhm.
Y'all want to dress all in black? I'm going to dress in purple or white. I'm the Puerto Rican, so I had to try. Eventually, it got through the head. Not eventually. It didn't take long, but I said,
It lost the volume.
let's push this. And am I back?
You back.
Okay, this television. Oh my God! I know you told me to do it too, and I didn't. But
It
give me a
happens.
second.
You had a phone call come in, right?
Yeah,
It happens. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
but my son told me, oh, I can't get it, but anyway. But yeah. So that's how we got around, but that's my favorite rhyme. Not, yeah, I guess it is my best rhyme. Um, I saw an interview with I call him the teacher, KRS-One, and he speaks very highly of me, and he says my rhyme, and the way he says it is when Rubie Dee said his rhyme, he said you weren't hip hop if you didn't know that rhyme.
That's right.
Not saying that it was a great rhyme, the best rhyme, no, it was just something that everybody. I didn't realize that until I started going places, doing shows where I'm like, wow, how do you how do you know this?
Mhm.
You know, and I still didn't see I didn't have that the vision wasn't there
Right, right.
still to for us to
You didn't foresee the significance of that one line that you
I
had.
didn't know, yeah, that, and man, ain't nobody back then thought that hip hop was going to become anything.
Right.
The no, oh, there was some that made records here and there, and they had that. But the overall picture, ain't nobody think that there was going to be a billionaire rapper.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, rappers on TV doing. We talking about rappers. We're not talking about regular rappers.
Oh,
You
not
know,
now it's to the point. If you don't mind me saying, when people say hip hop, they think rap. But when you're from the Bronx and you're from New York, you know better than that. Hip hop ain't
yeah,
rap,
yeah,
you know. Hip
yeah.
hop is the culture, and it's hip hop is the four elements plus a lot of other things that we live.
That what you say, the culture, right? I'm going to touch on a subject. I'm going to switch you here.
Please.
I don't like it, but I I might have told you not to ask the question, but I this controversy about Latinos and hip hop. I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail, a lot of stuff, but man, hip hop is a black thing. They that was them. Oh, Cool Herc did man Herc did a party for his sister,
Right.
and people went and hung out. Then he did another one. So that started rap. Okay, that's what you say. Okay, I'll go with it. I'll go with it. Because mind you, if Rubie Dee is the first Latino, right? First Puerto Rican, and I didn't come into the game to late 76, early 77, but that thing with Kool Herc was August 11th, 1973. That gap there. Were we at the party? Were we dancing? Were we breakdancing with that, along with it? Were we doing graffiti? Yeah, but we were not on stage. We
Very
were not
true.
on stage. Now, when I say the culture, I mean, yeah, we were there. We were, but
We're blessed to be a part of that culture.
okay, there you go. Yeah, that's the correct word. Um, we're blessed to be a part of that culture. Um, did we co-create that culture? I hate to say this, but no, did not. No. Were we there? Did we help the culture? No. Did I say that? I can't. I just said the same thing. The rap game, the hip hop. We did not start that. We just, as far as contributing to that as artists, we were not. Man,
No,
then again, like I said, I only say what I saw.
absolutely. And that's your history. And that's what
That's
we
just
want.
my history. And my history started right along the beginning. I remember when the Furious Five was flashing the three MCs. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. And they weren't there. Not on stage. Not on stage. So when people say, did we help co-create this thing? I don't know what you mean by that. But I don't
It is complicated.
you
It is.
it's
You got a lot of
complicated
elements.
because there's a lot of elements, I guess, to it. But the only element that I see that matters is if you were on stage. If you were a DJ or you were a rapper and you were on stage, you were part of hip hop. Everybody else was there in the crowd and whatnot, blah 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 blah. But I've gone to see the Rolling Stones, and I was on stage. I mean, in the crowd. Did I help the Rolling Stones? That no, I did not. Yeah, I helped them in their pocket because I paid for the ticket. But and it's hard to, you know, it's a subject that I don't touch because I say things like this, and I will tell you, but man, I don't. If I was the first one, that means that for the whole 3 years before me, we weren't there.
Rapping.
Did it? It was the beginning. When I got there, it was kind of gelling more into. You know how I say? I mentioned it before. When hip hop was invented, Puerto Ricans, Latinos were not there. Day one, we were not there. Day two, day two.
Got it. When
Now
was
I can
day one? That's just like an imaginary
January,
point.
August 11th, 1973. They changed the birth of hip hop.
Yeah, it's my humble
Yeah,
opinion.
but
That's not day one. You know what I'm saying?
right, no. I've heard other things too, but when we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of hip hop was because of the August 11th, 1973.
Right.
That's it. Whether that's the correct date, whether somebody that's the one that is in the books, we're gonna go with that one.
And who's the
Um,
first one to point the finger at August 11, 1973? Who's the first one to kind of like, yo, that's hip, that's the birth of hip hop, you know?
well,
Who
I,
who
I,
had
as
yeah,
far as far as a single person saying that, I don't know who was the first one to ever say that,
right.
but through my time in hip hop, I never heard anybody saying it was anybody else.
Very true. And a lot of respect, right? Especially when Africa Bambaataa and Zulu Nation says, I'm not the father. Everybody
Right, right,
everybody focused on August 11th, 1973. You know,
right. So,
Wi-
um,
without that help, do you think August 11th, 1973 would be as big a date as it is if it wasn't for
whoever, I
in
don't
the
know,
80s, in
like I
the
said,
early 80s to point their finger, say this is hip hop and this is the birth. That
this
didn't
is the
that
birth.
didn't happen in the 70s. No one was pointing to August 11th, 73, in my opinion.
I don't, when I was doing it, um, as far as the date, I never heard that date before.
Right. Exactly.
While I was doing it, I always heard that her was
And that's
the
my point.
first.
Right.
So I've never now as an adult I look, I get on my computer and I just every now and then I hear things and other names pop up
It was a significant date. It was a
and
significant, person in hip hop.
because okay, just tell me my opinion on your minds. When they would say Cool Herc, I remember I used to say, man, what about Grandmaster Flowers? I remember him.
Right, right.
He wasn't doing that ziggy ziggy, none of that like that, but he was doing the same thing. Oh,
Yeah. A lot of people say
I
he's from
just want to
Brooklyn
say,
and they discredit
yeah,
him for being from Brooklyn. A lot of people
eh,
discredit him saying he's a disco DJ. They were all disco DJs. They were all
yeah.
funk DJs, you know? Um,
You know what the L Brothers used to play? The last record of the party,
Tell me.
the Three Stooges. Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo, 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 woo. That's what we used to play, and people used to walk out on that.
Sweet,
Okay.
sweet. Hey, if you had a jam, significant, right? The B-boys have their anthems. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mexican, you know?
Yeah, Jimmy
How about
Casper. Yeah.
you? Yeah, how about you? Did you have a favorite song during that era that when you hear it,
I used to love "Got to Be Real" by Sherilyn.
okay?
To be real, dum, down, 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 dum, dum, dum,
All right.
dum. It was like disco, but I can talk to it where I can pronounce my words because that's another thing that I look into, and that's just me.
Mhm.
You want to qualify as a whatever pronunciation. You pronounce your words all the time, right? I can. Okay, so that was my thing. I didn't have a lot of rhymes, but if you listen to them, my pronunciation was to the point that was the. If I'm gonna do this, they need to understand what the hell I'm saying.
And you enunciated perfectly. That was you
You
concentrating.
know, you know. Yes, it's me, Rubie Dee, the Puerto Rican MC. Everything is like, like, I'm gonna say it to the best of my ability. But Sherilyn, to be real, um, oh my God, the Big Beat used to be another one. Boom, that boom, boom. I forget who wrote that one, but Sherilyn was like, I guess, the best one.
Right.
That when it came on, that and 7 Minutes of Funk. You remember that song?
I don't,
Don't,
but
don't. No. And I can't even think of who the hell made it, but it was 7 Minutes of Funk, and that the Daz Band, anything but Got to Be Real, Sheridan. To
gotcha.
this day. In fact, um, my youngest boys, they just graduated from high school, twins, and after the graduation, one of my daughters flew out here for their graduation, and I told her, "Hey, let's go to the club." I know, we went to somewhere where I know, and that song came on, and the DJ knows that I'm Rubie Dee, and I know, they said, "Rubie Dee, come on here, that's blah blah blah," that's my little go, and he'll put it on and hand me the mic, and I did what I did. It's the first time my daughter had ever seen me.
Awesome.
She knows Dad.
Right.
She's heard of Rubie Dee, you know, and she
That's
said,
awesome.
you she said, Dad, well, Ruben is, I take people's hand, I hug everybody. Rubie Dee kind of like, I still do the same thing, but remember that when I told you about the tour that we went with Sugar Hill, my first tour,
Yep.
when we were in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, after the show, or we had already performed, not after the show. Oh my God, she was beautiful. She came up to me, and you know the way I had a lot of hair,
Hmm.
and she grabbed my hair, a lock, and wrapped it around her finger, whoop, 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 and pulled it off right here, right there. And I had a bunch of curly hair and a red spot right there that I had while on tour.
Wow.
And from that day on, Rubie Dee, I was like, oh, no, we can talk over there.
Right. Right.
She snatched my hair off my head. I'm
Wow.
like, oh,
Only one was enough. So
yeah,
another thing many people may not know about you, right? And I want to thank you for your service, and I hope that you'll allow me to
yeah,
cross reference this into my veterans project. But you're a veteran of the U.S. Army. Can you
yes,
tell us when you joined the U.S. Army? What did you do? Talk to us a little about that.
I joined in '86. Um, the vision I told you that nobody really had it back then. Maybe they were, but that vision that hip hop,
Mhm.
I was making four, three, $400 every weekend. Every weekend. I also had a job, but my parents were working for 285 an hour, 265 an hour. I remember I worked for that much. And so I was making in a month, I'm making $1,000, $900. My parents, or some parents that had great jobs, they weren't bringing home $150 a week. And the money was, I guess, was good, but Puerto Ricans have a saying. I'm going to speak Spanish here for a second. Puerto Ricans have a saying. They used to say, a ti lo que te quedan son tres sitios: el hospital, la cárcel, o el cementerio. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, an army. I was like, an army.
Yeah,
I
that's your
didn't
fourth
know,
option.
but I didn't know nothing about that until that first option when they said la cárcel or jail. Um, that had a big part of. I never, you know, I messed up, and it was my first mess up. I've been a good guy, I've been working to school, blah blah blah. And they said you can go in the army. Back then they were sending you to the army. I'm out of here. They were talking about 30 days. 30 days. I want to do one. What? No. I heard all the stories. No. So I joined the army, and in a way, I glad I had to. I glad I fucked up, and that happened to me. And they sent me away to the army, you know, because it wasn't like I really went about. Like, they kind of sent me to the army. I'm glad that happened because I turned out to be a pretty cool guy. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what you know. People tell me Rubie Dee is not Ruben. You know, some go two different people. Um, Rubén es buena gente. Rubén, Rubie Dee es buena gente también, but he's more cautious, more
Got it.
you know.
What did you do in the army?
Okay, I was a tanker. Um, my ASVAB, I had a 110. I remember. Can't remember. I remember it was supposed to be high or good.
That is high. Your GT score is what
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was 110,
general
and
technical.
so I had the list of jobs that I qualified for were, you know, I didn't want to walk,
No infantry.
no matter what. I didn't want to walk. Um, and I saw a video for tankers, and I'm like, me gustó. Y yo dije, okay, you know what they didn't tell me? That expect a tanker's life expectancy on the battlefield is the shortest of anybody on the tanker on the battlefield.
Until that M1 Abrams came out.
Yeah, because they target the tank first. Life expectancy was 2 hours.
Yeah. Wow. Is that all you
I
did?
was I was like, I was a tanker. Then I became I used to help the NBC guy,
Nuclear, biological, chemical.
the chemical. I used to help him a lot. So I kind of got into that, but I don't know. Man, you sound like you were in the military too.
20 years.
Um, how many?
20 years, 2 months, and 2 days.
16 years, 6 months, 4 days. I think 19 hours. I remember right.
It's funny how we remember that.
But I can't remember what I went into the kitchen for a little while ago.
Mm,
I'm like, I
right.
leave one room and I'm like, oh my God. And sometimes talk like when you mentioned Wild Style, it brought back earlier you asked me how many clubs. And Wild Style brought back, oh, the Mud Club. These certain other thing my memory kind of opens up.
So you got out of the military, say 2002?
Oh, I got out the army twice.
Okay, got you.
I was in And then I got out. 6 years, I got out, and I was home, and I was on Fordham Road, and I was going to a store, and there was a line, and this nice gentleman um cut in line, and my whole like what the hell, I didn't like it when we went inside. The people arguing with the people behind the counter, and that's my seat. I didn't like it. When I finished my business there and I left on Portland Road, we walked by, the recruiting station is there. So I went in and I asked them, hey, I got out 77 days ago. I want to go back in. And they asked me why, and I said, I don't know if I can deal with this civilian life. And they told me how you're going to do it, Brian, blah, 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 blah. But you'll get it back eventually, time and service. And so it's true. And then I was there, and I I became, you know what a CID is?
Yeah, Criminal Investigative Division.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, I did that. After a while, I didn't like that no more because my life was fake. You know what I mean? I go into your division, your whatever, blah 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 blah. I'll go in as a E2. I'll go in
Undercover.
as yeah, and so I had to act in a certain way where I really didn't like it. I used, I used to talk to my wife about it, and say, well, I really don't, I didn't like it. But it was a great job because, um, remember when I joined the army, I used to smoke pot. Then I stopped because in the army, you can't do that stuff.
Mhm.
But now, if I'm coming to you, if you're under investigation, I'm coming to you because you under investigation because you smoke, you sell whatever the hell the pot. Now I was allowed to take the joint and go, oh, this is real. Now, you know, so I guess those were the hidden perks of
Right.
but I didn't like it. I went back in as a tanker again, and I was a 19 Echo, but then they transitioned to 19 Kilo when the M1 first came out.
Mhm.
Because I was an M68, the big dinosaur. Remember
Mhm.
that tank? The big,
The
it
M60.
was a
Yeah.
good M68, that was a good tank, but, you know, the M1 came around
Changed everything.
and yeah, 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 yeah.
It was leaps and bounds technology wise above the M60. It can shoot moving.
Yeah, and
You know,
like the M60, like when you yell out "stay," for tank, and everybody hits it, you can put that gun tube on a target, and but with the M1,
you can put it on target going 35 miles an hour.
yeah, 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 you can,
Yeah. With M60, you had to stop.
yeah,
You had to set.
you
You had to
you can
fire.
turn, but it was I was stationed in Fort Irwin, the National Training Center, the NTC.
NTC in California.
Yeah, so I was over Barstow, California, to be exact,
Yep.
and to we were always the Blue Force, of course. I mean, they were the Blue Force. We were always We were the bad guys. And everything we did it using the Russian doctrine.
Right?
Um,
We had to fight like them in order to learn how to fight.
10 tanks to your two, you know, overwhelm you.
Right?
And that's how we did. When they came out, we had Sheridan, the Sheridan tank, the M551 Sheridan, and on top of it, it was fiberglass, like the hull of one of them Russian tanks, T8, I believe is what they were called, T8, yeah. And
T-70s,
yeah,
T-72.
and yeah, were you a tanker? You know about this?
I was an intelligence analyst, so I had to learn all the equipment.
Okay, and so they it used to make you think. We used to kick the Blue Force ass. We used to whip the ass.
Right, right. The
We were,
Alpha Four, the opposing forces.
yeah, we were. A lot of it was we knew the terrain.
You're home.
We every you go out for 14 days, you come in for 7. You go out for 14, you come in for 7. And that's all you do while you stay. 14, you come in for 7. 14, that's all it is. Year round. And yeah, so there was a place that had a lot of um there was a place that had a lot of rocks. And if you're doing more than 15 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour on a tank, you'll break your torsion bar, you know. And if your torsion bar broke, you got to stop. You're on a convoy, you just block, you just block, your people can't go by you.
That's right.
Or if they want to go by you, they'll say, go by them and they'll speed up. Now you got several tanks with broken. We used to call that Siberia. That was our the ones that we were the out four. We were the opposing force. So that was Siberia. We said we can go that way to Siberia. 1 or 2 tanks. That was our lure them into that. They're gonna try to out. Here they come with those Bradleys and all them coming at you, and everything you get stuck. And it was a good experience. That was good. Yeah.
That is great.
Later on I was DA selected. I became a drill sergeant, and
Nice.
that was nice, but that wasn't for me. That it was okay at first, because but then
Now,
it was
where
like
did you drill? Did you drill at an AIT, at a basic?
well, when you take your attackers, when you go to Fort Knox, you do everything right there at Fort Knox. You do the AIT, my basic, everything is right there. You don't leave that. You be there a long man's time. That's the way I used to call it. How long you be there? I'm like, man, long ass time. I'm like, it just a recycle just. And then people say, oh yeah, but you had a major. And I said, well, you know what? DI school is not as easy as, it's
I,
hard,
I wouldn't think it's easy at all.
and I cannot make you do anything that I can't do, you know. And I remember when I was in basic, Drill Sergeant Almanza, he had somebody that had messed up. He had him doing crunchy, you know. He had him doing crunchy, and he told the rest of it. I'm gonna tell you all the story. Last cycle, I had a guy doing crunchies for 20 minutes, and I didn't break a sweat. I'm like, holy shit. He didn't. Oh,
Nice.
So, in one of my first things, there was a guy named Gibbons, his name, doing the 25-mile hike that the tank was doing. And this young man, he was walking and he had a bop to him. Left, right, he was on it. Certain parts you can't left, right because, the terrain. But when it was the left, right, we were like, he had, and somebody said something, and I remember I thought I heard him say, it's like he's listening to music. And I kind of stopped and let them go by. And I looked over, and then if he ain't had a he had an earpiece in his ear. He had a band-aid on it, and it went down in here, down in his pants, and inside. He had one of them. Remember back then, he had a Sony Walkman, and he had boy was jamming. That was we made him do push-ups and stuff like that. But I remember in private telling that boy, I said, "Yo, you a bad boy. What you did was kind of
It's pretty cool.
cool." But then I got hurt in the military, so and I got out. That desk job for me wasn't,
Right.
um, you know, ran over a landmine, the tank. Um, but it's like I tell people when we say a grenade went off in the Tennessee, 99.99% of the time, the grenade itself doesn't kill you. It's that concussion that comes and hits you, and
Right.
um, it's what happened to me. They tell you to button up in the tank, at all times. I can't see through them damn periscopes. And through all that, it closed, got my hand, and then they said, "Oh, you can." That's when I became, and NBC. I transitioned to that, but I ain't like that. I had to, we got to the point where I was like, I wasn't. I used to enjoy it, and then I didn't enjoy it no more,
This was just
and I had to get out. They say, "We'll give you 85%." Blah 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 blah. Blah. Like, I do. I was gonna go for nothing. You gonna give me?
you go pay the
Yeah,
bill.
yo me iba. I was gonna go. So you know,
Nice. All right. This was wow. This was a great, great encapsulation of your life in just a couple of hours.
yeah.
Thank
Do
you
you
so.
know?
Uh-huh.
Before we go, I'm gonna tell people that don't like social media. Um, if you abuse it, that's something new. It's not meant for that. A long time ago, they had a thing called MySpace.
Right. I remember that.
Some 2000, and I'm gonna say it was 2007, in July of 2007 to be exact. A friend of mine's helped me make a MySpace account. She lives in New York, and over the phone we did that through MySpace. I saw somebody that was selling cassette tapes, and I went through the list, and a lot of the tapes was us. Had us on it. So I
Nice.
contacted that person. That person turned out to be Jay Quan. That person had Whip's number, and I called Whip because I had not called him. Since once I left, I left. Um, I never told nobody what I did. I never In fact, once in Germany at a bar, at a club, whatever, they were playing the movie Wild Style, and I was watching it, with everybody else. And when my part came up, I would rhyme, and people were like, "Man, like you've seen this movie before?" I'm like, "Yeah, a couple of times." I never told anybody about that. And when we came back here to the States, it was like I didn't know what to. I didn't do it. I was over. It was done. It was in my past, and I got contacted Whipple Whip and Whipple Whip, and I told in the conversation. Long story short, I told him, "Man, I never owned a copy of the movie, the record. I never had the books. I never had none of that stuff." And he said, "But you get your checks, right?" And I was like, "Huh?"
What?
That was, this is July 2007. And he said, "In November, we get another one, and that'll be our 24th check." And I was like, "Do you have so and so's number, Charlie 800's number?" He said, and we call that man three-way. And do you know that when Whip told that man, "I got Rubie Dee on the line." Now I'm talking about 20 years, 25 years removed from last time I spoke to this person, saw this person. The first thing he said was, "Rubie Dee is my name, and I'm a fuck." He said my rhyme, and he said, "I got something for you." And behind that, of course, he sent me, I got the money, my little bit of money. And I got back with the guys, and since then, we kind of, you know, we're back out for Rubie Dee and Whipple Whipple. The Boricua, we be out there representing our culture,
For sure.
the
Wow.
hip hop culture, through the Puerto Rican culture, and because I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Wow. And you're a part of that history, and no one could take it away from you. You
And
know,
I'm glad we did this because I have heard people say Rubie Dee's journey did not start with the Fantastic Five. It was way, a
I
couple of years before that, and with the L brothers. Um, I'm glad I did it.
I'm glad you did too, and
I'm
thank
glad
you
I
so
did it.
much. This adds a lot of richness and value to the history and the video repository we're building. So it's awesome.
Yeah,
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to cover and say before I ask you the last question?
man. Other than hip hop, the genre of music, it has been not a billion, but it has been good to me. I've never had nothing negative. I don't have nothing negative to say about it.
Awesome.
The styles, they evolve. So, you know, I remember Bone Thugs and Hummer when they first came up. I used to love them. I did not know what they were saying, but then ooh, them was nice, you know. Um, and to this day, I go. We still do our thing. Not as big, we were inducted into the National Hip Hop Museum in 2023, the one in Washington D.C.
Right.
Um, so that movie Wild Style is, you know, it took me. I go places. I go to El Salvador. I go to Argentina. I go behind Rubie Dee from the Wild Style. When those guys start talking to me and start saying the rhymes, they're saying Wild Style, and I'm like, wow.
Awesome. Wow. That is incredible. We like to end all of our interviews with the same last question. What does the Bronx mean to you?
Home. That's home. That's where I learned. to be Ruben. I learned to be, you know, the saying, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
But if you live in New York, back in those days, you live in New York and you made it in the Bronx, it was a pretty good,
Right.
you know, the Bronx is, I love the unity of it, the Boricuas, the black guys, I mean, my DJ, Theodore Rockwell, they speak Spanish. Like when we speak in Spanish, está todo bien, okay, see you later, está todo hablado, I'm like, that they're more Puerto Rican than I am sometimes, you
Right.
know. And I'm glad that my life, the ups and downs, the bumps and roads that I had before being in the Bronx, coming back to the Bronx, um, let me back there and a chance encounter, you know, boom, boom, boom. What is that? And
Changed your
she
life.
walked by, whoa, and from there on, it just, you know, it's my life. It's a life that I kind of keep private a lot. You know, people find out. People find out. Um, but my neighbor never knew. And one day they had something on TV. Um, that thing called Premio Lo Nuestro?
Uh-huh.
So there was something on there, and they saw it, and I was contacted by Busy Bee. There's a comedian, we call him the hip hop comedian, Russell Peters,
Okay.
and it turned out that he's a big Fantastic Five fan, but he's a big Rubie Dee fan. And so since that day, again, if that wasn't Rubie Dee, I would never have met this gentleman and the people around him. And, you know, now but these people look up to me. Same way I look at them and I go, oh, you know, other comedians, Gary Owen, they live here in Houston. Whoa. And but when they see me, it's kind of like, whoa, and,
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome.
but the Bronx is the best. The Bronx, I would not change my time in the Bronx at the age when I was there. 16, 17, 18, 19-year old, South Bronx, New York. You didn't have fun. I don't know what you're doing.
Awesome.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what you were doing, but I had fun. Oh, what's the Bronx? They don't got beaches. Yes, we do. You just don't go.
There you go. Yeah.
You just don't go. We go. I take. I get on bus. Go to the store right across the street from Home Street from the ranch. You get a sandwich about this spice, ham, and cheese. Big old piece of thing, and they'll cut it for you in three, and wrap it all up, put it in your backpack, and you go. There was a little boot thing, and you drink water. We used to put wine in. We
Right.
used to put wine in there.
It
You
was
know.
leather, right?
Yes, it was made of leather. Looked like it was inside out.
Yep.
We had that. The big mittens in the winter. BBB, blackberry brandy. Like a little half a. It wasn't a half a pint. It was smaller than that. You put it in your damn glove like that. Remember the coffee stirs?
Hmm.
You know, you take those and you make a hole on the top and you stick it through the top. And you be out there, you take a little sip of that blackberry brandy, warm your
Awesome.
and,
Wow.
and it was like, and you see how it's like that's nothing. But yes, it was. Yes, it was. To me, it was. Back then when I was younger, we did what we did, hang out. On occasions I smoked pot or whatever. And the I remember everybody's dream back then was like, oh, they need to make this legal.
Mhm.
They made it legal. I went there. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Got it.
Which is okay, you know, but it's everywhere.
This has been a great time, and yeah. So Ruben Garcia, also known as MC Rubie Dee, for the Bronx Hip Hop Oral History Project. Thank you so much.
Thank
Peace, my
you.
brother.
Agradecido.